Welcome to this explainer. If you've ever glanced up at a small plane circling an airport and wondered what on earth the pilot is actually doing up there, step by step, switch by switch, well, you're in the right place. Today we're jumping straight into the left seat to decode the intense, multitasking reality of flying a standard flight pattern. Let's get right to it.
But before we even think about releasing those parking brakes, we've got to understand the airspace. We'll be flying what's called a left-hand circuit. It's exactly what it sounds like. A massive rectangular traffic pattern drawn in the sky right around the runway, where literally every single turn is to the left. This is what keeps traffic organized, predictable, and most importantly, safe.
So here's our pre-flight briefing. We're going to cover the vital actions before liftoff, then the takeoff and climb, flying the downwind circuit, the engine-assisted approach, and finally, touchdown and rollout.
All right, diving into Section 1, Vital Actions Before Liftoff. This covers our essential pre-flight preparation right there on the ground.
Now, there's a highly strict sequence of events before our aircraft is even allowed to touch the runway paint. Imagine you're sitting right there in the pilot's seat. You've taxied out, but you have to stop dead on the taxiway centerline, way before the runway holding point. And you don't just stop pointing straight ahead either. You gently bring the aircraft to a halt and deliberately offset the nose slightly toward the approach path. You set those parking brakes and hold the toe brakes firmly. Why do we do this? Well, from this specific angle, looking out your left window, you can physically see the base leg and final approach. You're basically visually clearing the airspace to make absolutely sure you don't pull out in front of someone coming in to land.
While we're holding short, we run through the pilot's ultimate safety net. We use the acronym TMFISCH to verify everything keeping us safe. We check trim and throttle. We make sure the fuel mixture is rich and the ammeter shows the battery is charging. We verify fuel, flaps, and instruments are all perfectly set. Then we test the switches, including the engine's ignition systems, check that our controls move totally free, and finally, lock down our hatches and harnesses. Once that whole shebang is complete, we hold the brakes firmly, smoothly open the throttle to 1900 RPM just to make sure the engine is purring, and then drop it right back. Only then, after getting the green light from the tower, do we actually line up on the runway.
Moving right along to Section 2, the takeoff and climb. Time to break contact with the Earth.
Okay, we're lined up perfectly straight on the runway centerline. Controls are neutral, we release the brakes and push that throttle smoothly all the way to full power. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As we accelerate, you'll notice the aircraft naturally wants to pull to the left. To keep it dead center, you've got to apply firm, responsive right rudder. And you'll actually feel that rudder get heavier and way more effective as the air rushes over it with increasing speed.
At this point, your eyes are darting between the runway ahead and your airspeed indicator. The second that needle hits exactly 55 knots, it's go time. You apply gentle, smooth backward pressure on the control column. The nose lifts, the wheels unstick from the tarmac, and just like that, you're airborne. You just keep those wings level, let the speed build up in a shallow climb, and then establish a nice, steady climb away at exactly 80 knots.
So, the main goal now is hitting our circuit altitude, and it's a pretty busy climb. Passing 300 feet, we clean up the aircraft. Flaps come up, lights go off. Approaching 500 feet, we clear the airspace and ease into a gentle right turn. We hold this climb until we perfectly capture our target, which is 1,000 feet above the ground. Then we dial the engine back to 1900 RPM and trim the nose, basically balancing the aircraft so it practically flies itself.
Which brings us to Section 3, flying the downwind circuit. Setting up for steady action at 1,000 feet. We perform a level, medium turn to fly parallel to the runway. Now picture this in your mind's eye. How do you actually know you're the right distance from the runway? Just look over your left shoulder. The runway should be sitting right at your 7 o'clock position. And here's a really cool visual trick. Your right wingtip should look like it's trailing perfectly along the runway edge. If you see that, your lateral spacing is absolutely spot on.
As we cruise smoothly down this leg, holding our altitude and speed, we hit the midpoint. Time for our pre-landing checks, using the BUMFISH acronym. It's a quick but absolutely critical sweep. Brakes off, undercarriage down and locked. Mixture rich, fuel on both tanks. Ignitions checked, security locked down, meaning seatbelts are tight and there are no loose items flying around. And finally, height, holding steady at exactly 1,000 feet. This guarantees we're 100% ready to start coming down.
Next up is Section 4, the engine-assisted approach. This is all about the precision management of sink rate and speed.
As the threshold of the runway appears at our 8 o'clock position, the high-stakes precision really kicks in. We do a visual sweep to ensure it's clear, pull the throttle back to 1500 RPM, and enter a descending turn onto our base leg.
Once we roll out 90 degrees to the runway, we verify our speed is below 110 knots and drop the flaps to 10 degrees. Now here is a golden rule of aviation that might actually surprise you. You do not use the nose to control your descent. Nope. You control your rate of descent with your engine power, and you control your speed with the pitch of the nose. You're constantly juggling these two inputs to set up a flawless 500-foot straight-in approach as you turn onto final.
Because we're keeping that engine engaged, the view out your windshield looks very specific. Unlike a traditional glide approach where the engine is idle and you're pointing pretty steeply at the ground, our engine-assisted approach gives us a much shallower, flatter perspective as the runway threshold rushes toward us. We tweak the throttle, set the flaps to 20 degrees, lower the nose, and trim the aircraft to hold exactly 70 knots.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, Touchdown and Rollout, the high-stakes final roundoff. We're perfectly aligned on the extended runway centerline. Speed is locked in, attitude is spot on. But there is one absolute, non-negotiable requirement before we cross that threshold. We must obtain explicit landing clearance from the tower. I mean, even with flawless preparation, we do not touch that tarmac without hearing those magic words.
Clearance received. The runway is expanding rapidly in the windshield now. We're just short of the threshold, and we hit a critical altitude, 20 feet above the runway. This right here is where the magic happens. At exactly 20 feet, we perform the roundoff. We gently pitch the nose up to fly perfectly parallel to the ground. We're slowly walking back the throttle and controlling our sink purely by changing the attitude, looking all the way down to the far end of the runway as we float just inches above the asphalt.
As the speed bleeds off, the throttle goes fully idle, and we bring the control column back progressively. And there it is. We touch down on the main wheels first. The exact second you hear that satisfying chirp of the tires, you gently release the back pressure on the column, just letting the nose wheel drop and touch down naturally. You can literally feel the physical relief of returning to Earth. You immediately get on the rudders to maintain the center line, applying gentle brakes as the speed falls away, slowing down just enough to comfortably vacate the runway.
And just like that, we've completed a full left-hand circuit. We've taken a rigorous manual of acronyms and transformed it into the dynamic, thrilling reality of flight. It really goes to show that flying isn't just about manhandling a machine, it's this delicate, calculated dance with gravity. So next time you see a small plane turning in the sky, you're going to know exactly what's happening in that left seat. The only question is, when are you going to take the controls yourself? Keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.